arms deals with religious fanatics in Iran. The money skimmed off into Swiss bank accounts and used to arm fascist mercenaries in Nicaragua. Oh, no! Hindus pulled off of buses in India and shot just because they're Hindus. Oh, no, no, no. The acid rain killing all the maple trees on the East Coast. Oh, the extinction of the snail darter. Oh! Violent, juvenile freak, atom mutant geek, a baby born with asbestos pants and fluorocarbon teeth. I fought in Nam and Afghanistan. The desert's dead. I'm back again. Veteran, technology. I love Agent O. Yeah, I love Agent O. Junk food, plastic, sack wrap, trash, buried under my house for cash. The kids grow up, their heads are mashed with stupid air and TV hash, radiation everywhere. But I don't care. I'm not alone. I'm on the phone. On hold. Hello? Hello? Pull my calls. What's in this Coke? I'm sniffing. What's in this Coke? I'm drinking. Inking. Yeah! My mother smoked 3 packs of low-tar menthol cigarettes every day for 9 months before I was born. She took Valiums to stay cool. She drank coffee to keep up. And she had to pop ludes to sleep with my dad. And he worked in the insecticide factory. It's hard to expect me to grow up and be anything but a mush brain. Violent, juvenile, freakoid, oid, hooked on mercury in my fish. The brain food ate my brain away. Put some saccharin in my dish with sodium nitrate bacon fry. Nitrosamines are in my jeans and fill my pinball, pinhead beer dreams. Violent, juvenile freak, atom mutant geek, a baby born with asbestos pants and fluorocarbon teeth. I fought in Nam and Afghanistan. The desert's dead. I'm back again. Veteran of technology. I love Agent O. Hell, I live Agent Orange. 245 team, TCDD, Padow, DES, PVCDTs, Padow. I love Agent Orange. I love Agent Orange. 245T, TCDD, Padow, DES, PVCDTs, Padow. I love Agent Orange. Yeah, I love Agent I need something to help me out of this head. Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iran, acid rain, the snail dart. How am I going to get through the night? I got it. I can get through just as long as I take it one step at a time and don't think about no matter how cold or dark it gets, dawn will break, just as long as I keep my mind off. I don't want to talk about death. I want to talk about life. Life, for me, began November 29, 1939, when I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah. I'm from a steel-making town in a steel-making state. But steel was not heavily factored into my childhood. I mean, I don't remember the boys' advisor at Shaker Heights High School ever calling down the hall, "Bergman! Hit! Come here, Bergman! Been looking at your SATs. Strong in math. Good in French. Oh, strong in physics. Oh, lots of extracurricular activities. You keep it up, Pete. You could make steel." No, I didn't make steel. I went to Yale. Oh, at Yale, I talked about steel. I talked about steel. I talked about coal. I talked about textiles. I talked about agriculture. I talked about structural unemployment. All in the format of being an economics major. I was part of the late 50s college generation that believed we could solve the entire country's economic and social problems by simply converting the American war machine into a washing machine. Steel followed me to graduate school. I was an Andrew Carnegie teaching fellow. Andrew Carnegie, the father of U.S. Steel, was paying my salary. And if at any one of the various political meetings that I attended, anyone would have stood up and said, "Hey, Bergman, it's 1961. 25 years from now, U.S. Steel is going to be making more money pumping oil than making steel." I would have said, "Brother, that's absurd." "Oh, yeah? They're going to change their name from U.S. Steel to USX. Brother, that is not only absurd, that is surreal." It gets worse than that. We're going to elect a functionally illiterate president. And he's going to invade. All right, I've heard enough. Oh, the dude was right. A year ago, U.S. Steel changed their name to USX. Personally, I think they should have changed it to US ... Well, I haven't tried to change my name. I'm still Peter Paul. Peter Paul, I have two names. I have two godfathers. Peter Witt, the inventor of the side door opening
trolley car, dignity, and Paul Bellamy, the editor of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, while my father was working there. Superman and Peter Bergman were conceived simultaneously in the fall of 1939 in Cleveland, Ohio. It's true. Cleveland became Metropolis. The Plain Dealer became the Daily Planet, and Paul Bellamy became Perry White. Superman's boss is my godfather. Well, if the Man of Steel is from Cleveland, why doesn't he just fly down and solve the steel crisis, which is causing untold suffering in that town? I'll tell you why. Because the Man of Steel is now made entirely out of aluminum. And he's moved to Brazil and Japan. Names. U.S. Steel, USX. Names. What's in a name? Any Christopher, Michael, Matthew, John, James, Joshua, Andrew, Brian, Adam, Jason's? Jennifer, Sarah, Jessica, Amanda, Ashley, Elizabeth, Lindsay, Nicole, Emily. Those are the 20 most popular names assigned to newborn children in the last 3 years. It's not my name. It's not your name. And that means we're going to grow up in a world increasingly populated by people that don't have our name. I can see it. 10 years from now, I'm going to be hanging out in some insane chicken on fire takeout parlor. And over the loudspeaker will come, Peter, go and get your soy dogs and paper fries. Peter. And all the Christopher, Michael, Matthew, John, James, Joshua, Andrew, Brian, Adam, Jason, Jennifer, Sarah, Jessica, Amanda, Ashley, Elizabeth, Lindsay, Nicole, Emily's are going to say, Peter, what kind of a name is that? Now, there is some good news. Joe didn't make it. Joe didn't make it to the top 10. And that presages the death of that most bellicose of puppets. Glow taps for G.I. Joe. Well, if the War Toy Boys want to stay in step, they're going to have to find a new moniker for this dog. How about G.I. Joshua? I like it. It's got a nice Pacific ring. Did you notice 9 out of 10 of the boys' names are biblical? 9 out of 10. All except Jason. Jason! The pig! He's the kid 20 years from now at the sports connection, riding the bicycle to nowhere. With a tank top that reads, I left my brains at Husong's. On the other hand, 9 out of 10 of the women's names are non-biblical. And I know why. It's because women are notoriously underrepresented in the Bible. I don't remember Moses leading any Ashleys out of the wilderness. But the Bible, dear friends, is not the problem. I've got all the Bibles here. I've got the Old Testament. I've got the New Testament. I've got the Koran. I've got the Book of Mormon. I've got the Waspi Bible. I've got the Uranti Bible. I got the Bible the apostles wrote and never showed to Jesus. I got the Bible that Jesus wrote and never showed to the apostles. I've got all the Bibles here. And the Bible, dear friend, is not the problem. The problem is the people that sit home all day and watch the Bible on TV. 40% of all people with television sets in their homes watch some form of religious program. And 70% of them send some money every month to some religious group. And the problem, dear friend, is they're not sending it to me. Dr. Doom, star of Scale the Nation! We're all going to burn. We're all going to be consumed in the apocalyptic Holocaust. We're all going to burn. So send me your money and I'll burn it for you! No, dear friends. The Bible is not the problem. It's the people that sit home all day and watch the Bible on TV. People like Vicky Frost of Churchill, Tennessee, who has just successfully sued that state to expurgate from her children's elementary school materials all non-Christian ideas. Non-Christian ideas. In particular, those concepts born in the Renaissance of human worth and human dignity. Because according to Vicky, they glorify and not gold. Vicky Frost wants to repeal the Renaissance. She can't do that to me. I spent 4 years in college memorizing the Renaissance. You can't take Erasmus of Rotterdam from me. But it goes deeper than that. Vicky wants the following passage expunged from her children's reader, and I quote, Patricia has a big book. Patricia reads to Bob. Bob cooks. According to Vicky, this passage denies God-given sexually determined roles. Oh, my head. Vicky, if God had meant women to cook exclusively, he would have evolved their hands into kitchen utensils! What Vicky Frost truly fears is Beelzebub, the Fly Master! Satanism, oh my head! Fundamentalism in the public schools, oh! The trade deficit. How can I be expected to handle problems of such universal import when I have such trouble just getting through the day? My digital alarm clock. Not the kind of alarm clock that woke me every morning at 5:30 in Cleveland, Ohio to do my paper route. Oh no, I had a real alarm clock with a round, friendly face, and 2 glow-in-the-dark hands, and 4 stubby brass feet, and 2 metal bells on the top that went cling, ling, 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 ling. I mean, that really got you up in the morning. But now, as I rise to the half-light of dawn, the first thing I see are 4 red Nixie readouts, blinking incessantly. 6 gold, 1 5, 6 gold, 1 5, and all I hear is and I feel like a huge standing rib roast. That's ready to come out of the microwave. Get this rib rose out of bed. Get this rib rose to a shower. Oh, a shower. Whoa, hot water and steam. 3 minutes to revert and relax. Forget about the pressures of the day ahead. Time to just soak myself down and shampoo my... What's this? My shampoo is self-adjusting. I'm not. Oh no, it's 8 o'clock. Time to go to work. Oh, look at that directory of names. It's so big, it could be a war memorial. The elevator arrives. And now I face a passage more dangerous than Persephone's entrance into Hades. I must cross the path of those elevator doors. They no more than break that invisible beam of light when they come rushing at me with a rumble and a roar, trying to crush me like some poor sardine between 2 pieces of heavy metal bread. What? Oh, we're moving. Moving. Oh my God, this must be the elevator that Einstein used to demonstrate the speed of light. As I go rocketing up the shaft, I can actually feel my mass increasing. What a ride! Yeah! What a ride! But better than taking its antiqual brother. The Inch World Elevator. As I apparently rise from floor to floor, I can actually feel myself age. The light of 43 has been on forever. How can one floor be so thick? Bing! 44, my floor. Time to go to work. It took so long to get here, it's time to go home. So it's down through the elevator shaft, whoosh, and into the parking screw to find my car. Beep. 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 Honk. Beep. Honk. Beep. Honk. Beep. Honk. Like, blink. Junk. Let's get the hell out of here. I'm out of the parking screw. And onto the freeway, which is already in progress. I love the freeway. It's the only time I get a chance to catch up on my reading. What's that? I heart my dog picture. I haven't come a long way, and don't call me baby. I'd rather be driving my car. I love Jesus, so I honked. Guy turned around, gave me the finger! What's that yellow diamond? Back window of that car? Baby on board.
There's a baby on board, a precious infante, a future taxpayer. Let's just pull up and see what the little tiny looks like. Hey, that kid seat is empty. You lied to me. Eat flaming death, mother.
Just like a three-way fantasy. Oh, I forgot. I got a shot before I go home, so it's into the supermarket parking lot. The Lucky Von Boys. Well, lucky for me, all I want is peanut butter and something to spread it on. I'll just get my cart. I got the comedy card. You know the kind. You push to the right, goes to the left. You push to the left, goes to the right, stops. Oh! It's a hand like a crotch. All right. Peanut butter and something to spread it on. Let's see. Starch blockers? Pet bribes? No. Pressed non-dairy? No. Generic desserts? No. Breakfast boutique? Breakfast boutique. Oh, hey! Peanut butter! Laura Scudder's old-fashioned style, chunky-esque peanut butter. Lead and arsenic free. I like that. But what is 3% potassium stultonate? What's the function of white dye number 10? Is that the stuff that takes hair off your chest? Puts it back on? And what do they mean by old-fashioned? Does that mean made without the advantages of the sterile process? Got it. I'll ask Laura.
Oh, come on, Pete, get serious. Laura is busy in her old-fashioned kitchen, chunking up those choice fruiters.
So they'll spread just right on my Betty Crocker prefabricated dinner rolls. And Betty is slaving away in her homely kitchen, making sure there's just the right amount of prefabrication on every roll. Right? Wrong! Laura Scudder and Betty Crocker were last seen together in Monte Carlo, playing chemin de fer, drinking champagne out of bottles with nobody's picture on it. I am getting my cart to the checkout stand. I call it the checkout stand because I spend most of my time checking out what other people have bought.
Ooh, there's a nice load.
A 6-pack of Diet Rat Cola, a 10-pound bag of chocolate cherry bombs, 2 injectable TV dinners, a can of Mr. Liverface's dead dog cat food, full pound of ground round pound hound. Oh, my turn. All I've got is peanut butter and something to spread it on. Bing, 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 bing. $8.25. Not to worry. when my extended family's weight in gold and plutonium. All I have to do is collect enough of these to recreate the Guernica. Are those the eyes of that poor, crazed horse? As I leave the supermarket, I know how he felt. Click, nano, 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 boom. That's good. Go home. Yum. This is my home. Oh, this is my gate. This is my door. Ching, 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 ching. Beep, 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 beep. I'm home. And I'm alone. Well, not exactly. You see, he's in the back with his singular, cold, glassy eye, waiting for me to turn him on. Watch me. I'm not going to watch him. Oh, no, I'm going to make dinner. Watch me. Oh, come on. I'm going to take a bicycle repair. I'm going to force tulips. Watch me. Oh, I have had a tough day at the office. Watch me. Oh, and I would like someone to take responsibility for my subconscious fantasy life. Watch me. Yes, Max. Yes, Max. I will watch you. Watch me. Click. Click. Hello! I'm Ulysses X. Bob, and we're just about to start the show. And we're live tonight, so your response is going to have a lot to do with what kind of a show we have. So when the beautiful Maxine gives you the applause sign, I want you to give it your very best. Ready, Maxine? Let her rip! But it's not all high times on the show tonight. Our contestant's going to have his glow voice, and when he does, he's going to want to grow. And it's going to sound a little something like this. And we'd like you to Maxine. Let 'em rip. Oh, we've got some groaners in the audience tonight. Well, we're just about to go on the air. Just a couple of seconds. Ready, Maxine? Ready, folks? Ready, Jim? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit it! Every 5 minutes there's a new millionaire in America. Every 5 minutes someone goes homeless. Which will it be tonight? Let's find out on the game show America's already playing. Eat or be eaten! And here's your trivial host, the man who giveth and taketh away, Bleach Lincoln! Thank you, folks in the audience, all the mooks at home watching on TV, watching Eat or Be Eaten, America's game show where our contestant's going to leave this stage tonight, dirt rich or filthy poor. And hey, let's meet him. He's come all the way from Dreamland, California. He's a word cruncher and U.S. stolen steel. Let's say hello to Rolade Demographico! Hi, Bleach. Well, hi, Roy. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. My son's a junkie in India. My daughter's in her 3rd year as a hostage. My ex-wife just had the state declare me insane so they would take care of her parents.
Well, I can see you're ready to eat or
Oh, yeah, I guess I am.
Okay, Romaine, here's your first question. What am I holding in my hand? A tiny blue ball or a 10-ton elephant?
On to the top and go. He can pull, but people are always trying to pull the wool over. He rides and it looks like a ball, but he couldn't. He got it.
Ball!
Ball. He's right! Well, what's he want, Bob?
$1 million, Bleach. $1 million and a millionaire's mansion to stuff it in. That's right, Rory. You're going to be living in a post-nuclear, defoliated splendor of Carrion Hills, California. The all-moated Mondo Condo, where you live on the inside and the homeless live on the outside. In the box you threw away when you opened this 40,000 cubic foot cryogenic refrigerator. Grandma and whole beef halves hang out together in style. Close the door and the light stays on.
Hey, Rolade, you lucky winner. How do you feel?
A little above it all, a little reckless, a little nervous, a little alienated.
Oh, I can see the magic's beginning to work on you. You're a millionaire, and you can stop right now, Rolade, and live in the tax shelter of your choice. Well, go on, answer one more question, and win it all.
Oh, you mean there's more than $1 million in a place to stuff it in?
That's right, Rolade. Answer one more question. We'll take it all away from everybody else and give it to you.
What do you say? That's a tough one. What am I going to do? I got $1 million in a house. Shall I go for it? I know what am I going to do? Go. All right. I'm an American. I want it all right now.
Okay, let's spin the big wheel of fortune and find out what your question is to be.
Oh, come on, military software. Come on, toxic Creole restaurants. Click. It just stopped on a big question mark.
Right on, Rolade. You got the big question. And let's find out what it is.
All right. For the whole 9 yards, the whole ball of wax, for everything, tell me, who is responsible for solving the pitiful plight of the American homeless?
Who is responsible for solving the beautiful plight of the American homeless? That's a tough one. It's gotta be somebody who's really kind of big and powerful. It can't be the president. He wouldn't know if he did it. He'd forget it in a minute. And it can't be the Congress. They're too busy trying to stop a military junta. It's gotta be somebody big and caring and loving and... I've got it. It's the old man with the beard that lives in the sky!
Beard lives in the sky. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. That's not correct. No, it's not the old man with the beard that lives in the sky. It's personally responsible for solving the pitiful plight of the American homeless, Roman. It's
You! Me! Oh my God, I knew it all along! I'm a millionaire! I can solve mine. I can solve your problems. I can solve the problems of the homeless. I can solve everyone's problems. I'm a millionaire!
not anymore, Lorraine. You just lost it all. You're broke. You're gonna have to go live in a box. Right, Bob?
Right, Bleach, but not just any box. We're talking about a triple wide, corrugated cardboard box with rust-easy staples. And what's a box to live in without newspapers to wrap around your legs and a garbage bag to wear over your head? A fashion statement from Voodoo Economics of Heavenly Hills, California. And rolling. Don't worry about eating. We'll eat for you!
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, all the folks in the audience and all the mooks at home. And just remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you want the system, sooner or later, your number is coming up. And then it's going to be your turn to eat or be eaten! Eat! I don't want to eat. I don't want to be eaten. I don't want newspapers. I don't want newspapers on my leg. I don't want a bag. Take a bag. I don't want another box. I don't want to live like that. It was just another night. I don't live in a box. I live in a house. Oh, Peter, you've got to start counting your blessings. Okay. This is my house. Click. Oh, this is my yard. Oh, those are my flowers. Oh, this is my curb. That's my street. These are my I've got neighbors. Hey, it's gonna be all right. Things aren't as bad as they appear. Just count your blessings. I mean, it could be a lot worse. I could be in the gulag. What about the guys in the gulag? They've got neighbors, but they've got bombers in front of their faces. And what about the 6-year-olds in Soweto? All they want to do is go to kindergarten with their little friends, holding their hands, and they've got dogs tearing at their flesh. Dogs tearing at their flesh. Yeah. And what about the bomb?
You know, the theory is that William Casey was gay and John Poindexter was blackmailing him. Oh, wait, the mic is on. And now, MOCA, in compliance with the Pipeline Incorporated, is delighted to present one of the most brilliant minds of our generation, a man with neither shame nor pride, a man who tells perverted parables. This afternoon, however, the part of Paul Krassner will be played by Harry Shearer. The part of Harry Shearer will be played by Bernard Goetz. You know Bernard Goetz, of course, is the subway vigilante who, the only difference between him and General Secord is that one of them pleaded the law and the other pleaded not guilty. But they both share a clinical paranoia. That Bernard Goetz was afraid of 4 guys in the subway and General Secord was afraid of the entire Sandinista government. But the paranoia comes from the lack of cause and effect. Bernard Goetz said that they were going to, they said to him in the testimony, give me $5. And now if you're going to rob somebody at gunpoint or knife point or screwdriver point, you're going to say, give me all your money. You know, otherwise it's, okay fellas, just wait a second, let me get out my thick billfold here. These hundreds out of the way. 50s, 20s, 10s, here's the 5, here you are, here's the 5, thank you, have a nice day. Not likely. Well, I mean, you never know who sat there. Actors come through here. But more importantly, the mere presence of this transforms what I do from ordinary stand-up comedy to performance art. Okay. Now look, we don't have a lot of time for a regular conversation, so you're going to have to be more symbolic in your responses. Yes, that's it. That's very good. I mean to tell you. You'll be pleased to know that you have an interesting burst rate of, I went to a humor conference in Phoenix where they measured the burst rate of laughter, and yours is just right. Good, that's good, that's good. Just keep practicing. They do that. They have, like, so if you talk very fast like this, you're very likely to laugh. Ha 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 ha. And they get grants for this. They found in their research that the most common consonant in laughter is H. So, see, you could have discovered it empirically. So that very rarely will you see someone laugh, fa 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 fa. Even more rare is ka 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 ka. And yet they do allow for individual variations. So for example, some people who laugh with a sinister did to it will laugh with an M. You know, like that. Hasidic Jews laugh with a ha 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 ha. But in all their research, they never found a single individual internationally who started a laughter with a multiple consonant. So you never hear anybody laugh. And I'm such an anarchist that I thought I'm going to reprogram my nervous system just so I can laugh like that. So people come up, you know, and they say something funny, and I go, They look at me, what are you, a falafel salesman? But there's been a lot of laughter in these hearings. I mean, here we are in the middle of Schultz mania. Did you ever see a Secretary of State reeking with more charisma? I mean, there's T-shirts with Schultz's picture on it. There's, if you saw the Hollywood sign, for one day it was changed to Schultzywood. For lunch today, I had a Schultz burger. This is a hamburger with sort of cheese melting over the sides, and you're not sure what ingredients are in it. And if you ask the waiter, he says, you don't want to know. It's totally consistent. But these hearings, and I've been truly addicted to them, they have affected my whole workday. I just cannot stop watching them. It's sort of like watching a convention of wimps. Now wait a minute, look, we don't mind if you want to have a secret government. We just want to be told about it. How else else are we going to pretend we're the real government? So they have this parade of witnesses on a conveyor belt come by, you know, starting with Bud McFarland, who's there taking his Valiums through a Pez dispenser. And yet he has Tourette syndrome. It's sort of like, you know, when people burst out and say things that they're really thinking of. That burst right through his Valium haze. So he there's testifying that, well, what we did in the National Security Council. Right. Israel made us do it, goddammit. So, then of course we have Thorn Hall. Now, and so you could see the chauvinism just reaching from all these guys. They, you know, I mean, they had very dignified on the outside, but on the inside, and so, but they go through them all, very dignified. Miss Hall, I'd like, are these the panties that you carry the documents in? I'd like to enter these as 1, 3, 4, 7, and then they just pass them around. You know, very dignified, except Senator Orrin Hatch, who loses his cool. You know, thank you very much. My good friend from Wisconsin. Forgetting momentarily that the cameras are on him. You know, he suddenly snaps out of it. Oh, you're a great American, Miss Hall. Thank you. And yet she is a real tribute to feminism. I mean, here's somebody who, you know, would shred secret documents for Oliver North, but never made coffee for him. So she has her standards. And, I mean, that kind of stereotypical role-playing starts before we even learn the language. Little boys learn that they button their shirts this way. Little girls learn they button their blouses that way. This is a gender orientation that God intended. On the 6th day, I think it was. Even hostility. Boys are allowed to show anger. Girls are supposed to withhold anger. They're taught to. Nice girls don't show anger. So that even the symbol for anger, giving somebody the finger, is a male phallic symbol. You know, if we want to have true equality, it has to even extend to anger. So that if there's an argument, you can say, oh yeah, up yours. Oh yeah, in this. Just equality, that's all we want. Excuse me, I'm being channeled by a parrot. Some people get Ramtha, Bindians, Pakistani gurus, I get a parrot. The thing I want to know is how come Oliver North never changes his clothes? Day after day, same medals. And yet, I try to be objective. You know, my immediate thing is, God, this guy is a psychopath. But I try to say, no, they say he's a can-do guy, maybe because psychopaths can do too. They're not mutually exclusive. But then you want to watch that. That means they get past all the red tape. So even though we heard that Gabanafar, it wasn't clear whether he was an Iranian merchant or an Israeli agent. And the CIA and the National Security Council and the Defense Intelligence Agency, all the intelligence agencies with all their resources could not tell. But it took Ollie North, you know, you want to know whether this guy is an Iranian merchant or an Israeli agent? Just take him into the bathroom and peek. He's an Iranian. Not realizing, of course, that Israeli intelligence has voluntary foreskin returning. What do they call that? Transplant. Well, no, it's not from somebody else. I think they take it from your knuckle, so it has that resilient quality when it bends. But it's true, they transplanted from yourself, still a transplant, so I stand corrected. We all make mistakes. One of my favorite mistakes once was, well, it was a deliberate mistake. It was at this real, very dignified literary conference, and this woman, voluptuous woman, drove in on a motorcycle and got off, and I just went, and I was one of those moods, you know, like Orrin Hatch, and I started sniffing the motorcycle seat, like that. And then I heard the laughter around me change from laughter to kind of, it had an uh-oh quality. And I looked up, and it was the woman who had driven the motorcycle, and I said, Capricorn. And I was right. Now this is a power that I don't want to test. But the bizarre thing was, I was going to say cancer, I didn't want her to think it was a medical diagnosis. Quick switch. All right, now, but it's a very non-marketable talent. So, all right, so now we have Admiral Poindexter. I didn't really understand him until I saw Dr. Ruth Westheimer one day. And by a very circuitous route, Dr. Ruth, as you know, is a sweet little old Jewish lady who has a Cuban accent. She gives very progressive sexual advice, but coming from her is just incongruous. And then she cackles, so she'll say, "You can use a cucumber for a dildo. Just be sure to peel it first." My kids will say, "Mommy, what's a dildo?" Look, just go listen to your Twisted Sister album, okay? These questions. So, she'll say things like, "Don't worry if you have a premature ejaculation. Another one will come along soon, just like a bus." I mean, this is in the afternoon. Kids can see this. What are they supposed to think? Hey, do you ever have a premature ejaculation? No, I'm only 7. They don't know what it means. If you have one at 7, then it's a pre-premature ejaculation. But since we're a nation of individuality, then there are no precise standards to measure objectively at the moment when a premature ejaculation turns into a mature ejaculation. I don't even know what a mature ejaculation is. I've been searching for them. My mother always said, "Act mature," so I figured it should apply to ejaculations. And so I thought I had a hint once, because I passed a pornography theater, and on the marquee it said, "For mature adults only." I said, if I go in there, I'll hear some mature ejaculations. And I listened, I just heard things like, "Give me the Kleenex," which I guess is a mature ejaculation that has a sense of responsibility, cause and effect. But I think that John Poindexter is the personification of the mature ejaculation. You know, I mean, he would be in the middle of intercourse with his wife, still wearing her Episcopalian collar, you know, stopping only to tap his pipe. "Oh, my dear, I think yes, I'm in the midst of an orgasm right now." And that would be a mature ejaculation, in total control. Now, what would be a victim mature ejaculation? I am obsessed with that, because you can tell a lot about, some people read tea leaves. I can tell a lot about people by what they say at their moment of sexual climax. I mean, even now, atheists, for example, have gotten the very bad press. People think, well, they're narcissistic, they think they're the center of the universe, they don't believe in God, they think the world revolves around them, the universe. And so they must call out their own names at the moment of sexual climax. Well, this is a myth started by the Christian right. What atheists do, and I've done a little research, purely as a scientific pursuit. What atheists say at the moment of sexual climax is, "Oh, no God. Oh, no God." It's totally consistent with the core of their philosophy. There was an entire religious cult founded on the basis of, this was the Hare Krishnas, on the basis of the orgasmic shout of the wife of an impotent Hindu deity. Outside the tent, you could hear her shouting, "Hurry, Krishna, hurry, ram it, ram it, hurry, hurry, Krishna, hurry, hurry, ram it, ram it." And out of this now they got First Amendment's right to sell a body of pizza in the airport. They have the annual parade down Venice Boardwalk with their own elephant that has been fed entirely on trail mix. Just freedom of religion, it's great. All right, let's see, what have I left? Oh, Ed Meese. Well, I'll just tell you, I'll tell you an Ed Meese joke. I don't like jokes because they're too structured, but I was reading an article in the National Enquirer on how to tell a joke, and it said, "Always be sure to save the punchline for last." So now that I have the formula, this is a total mass communication Ed Meese joke. Knock, knock. I don't specifically have a recollection. So anyway, now the bizarre thing about these hearings is, you know, I mean, if you really try to be logical and see what the message is, the definition of national security is that for the 200th anniversary of the Constitution, we celebrate that by not allowing the American people to hear how these guys intended to suspend the Constitution. And so it just brings it back full cycle. And yet it's frustrating because like you could see the change in people. You could see Oliver North, right, starting out very earnest, looked like Jimmy Stewart, you know. Well, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she does nothing without my authority, you know. And then he kind of changed to Tony Perkins. Sort of like, well, yes, I got hospital. I went to Director Casey's office, and he was sitting in a chair there, and with his back to me, and he wheeled around, and it was my mother. So what? And Casey, of course, is our equivalent to the Nixon tapes in Watergate. They had 18 and a half minutes missing. We had William Casey altogether missing. And it got suspicious to me when, in his autopsy, they found that during his brain operation, the only section they removed was from August 1985 to November 1986. You know, coincidence or conspiracy? I mean, you can't tell anymore. Look at all these guys who part their hair on the right side. Ed Meese on the right side, Ronald Reagan on the right side, Caspar Weinberger on the right side, Oliver North on the right side. Coincidence or conspiracy? But the frustrating part is that there are so many unasked questions. I mean, I celebrated the other day when Senator Sauerbein, whatever his name is, called it a military junta. You know, that's happening on my TV set. I was proud to be an American in that moment. I mean, it's very paradoxical to be proud that you're American when it's admitted on network TV that we have a military junta. But, you know, I'll settle for small favors. I mean, that's what's so great about this country is that we have the right to speak out about how rotten we are. So what they didn't ask was the questions about the secret team that has been going on since the Bay of Pigs with assassination squads in various continents and gun running and drug smuggling. But the reporters, even at Reagan's press conference, they asked him, they say you have bad management style, you know, and he said, well, next time I'll take notes. Actually, he really said that on my television set. Next time I'll take notes. I just went and I said, hakasaba, hakasaka, hakasaka. So, I mean, I don't blame him that he's senile, you know, because that would be ageism. And 19% of the American population is senile, so they have a right to have a candidate in office too. That's what democracy is about. But there were hints all along we could see. During his first campaign, he said, if I am elected, I will end the inheritance tax for rich and poor alike. There's something there. And then, when John Hinckley shot the president, Hinckley came out for gun control, and Reagan came out against it. You know, you just knew it's a combination of smegma and plaque between the lobes of his brain. So, but the truth is that they do have good management style. What could be better management style than to fly planes carrying weapons for the Contras to airports in Honduras and Costa Rica? It would be terrible management style, which just means efficient business practice, if they flew those planes back empty to South Florida. Much better management style to have them filled to the cargo brim with bags of cocaine. And this is while the administration had its anti-public relations campaign. And, you know, Casey's just worried, okay, let's just avoid the radar. So that, you know, while Nancy was saying, just say no, the CIA was saying, just fly low. This, by the way, is my drug test. MOCA is a very distinguished environment, and so they want the performers to be drug-free. They also want the audience to be drug-free, and so during intermission you'll find these cups out there in the lobby. But see, what happened with me, I really am just hard up for mystical experience. And so when I heard that Indian gurus drink their own urine in order to bring them to a higher plateau in their spiritual quest, I really thought about, I'm going to do that. I mean, and it's well known that the Prime Minister of India was interviewed by Barbara Walters. And we were all waiting, is she going to ask her that question? So, and she kind of got a little bashful. She said, Prime Minister, sir, I have a question. Now, you might think this is a little strange coming on TV, but I'd like to ask it to you. And she says, oh, Barbara, I think I would choose to be a giraffe. And, no, I just want to know if you drink your own urine. And he admitted it there. Again, in my living room. But I thought, okay, if it's good enough for the Prime Minister of India, I'm going to do it. And I did it for you, because, I'll tell you what I learned from it, and you don't have to drink your own urine, so you're getting the benefit of my experience. Secondhand though it may be, it is not the drinking of your own urine that brings you to a higher plateau in your spiritual quest. It's the decision to do so. See, once you decide to drink your own piss, you're more than halfway there. Then it's real anticlimactic, but it's salty, big deal. And so this is what applies to people who walk on hot coals. It's just mind over matter. They just have to psych themselves up so deeply to do that every one of their cells in their body is telling them they're not going to feel pain when they walk over those hot coals. Of course, it helps if you have a cup of your own urine to sprinkle in front of you. It takes away that sizzle effect. Now, we know from these hearings, we understood why Gary Hart could not have become president. He doesn't know how to carry on a covert operation. He has no real sense of plausible deniability. He could have gone to the Elliott Abrams School of Lying, and learned, I misspoke on the record. So you never admit you're lying. I gave wrong testimony. You can even call somebody else a liar and not use the word. Say, his memory differs from my memory. And so I was so relieved to see Elliott Abrams testify that he had not been lying, that he was just deliberately misleading. What a relief. And so that's what Gary Hart ended up doing without knowing. He didn't lie, he just deliberately misled. She went out the back door, that's right, haha. And then his wife, Lee Hart, got sucked up into it and had to not lie, but deliberately mislead. If Gary says nothing happened, nothing happened. But when he got back home, hey honey, would you get me a beer? Let that blonde bitch get you a beer. Is she blonde down there? And all he had to do, would have been to look into the camera and say, look, America, my wife is in Colorado, I love her, but I was in Washington in a townhouse, this voluptuous blonde who's brilliant and funny and musical. Wouldn't you? He could have won on the adultery vote alone. Jimmy Carter got elected on the lust vote, and that was just lust in his heart. And Hart put it into action. And the pornography vote in this country, do you know that that's one of the biggest businesses? They could have made a cassette of Donna Rice and Gary Hart together. The cassette sales alone of the videotapes would have financed his entire campaign. He didn't need the industrialists. It would have probably paid for some of his 84 debts, too. But it's been a very nice scandal season, one scandal after another. Jim Baker, just like Gary Hart, tripped over his own heart-on and $92 billion followed him into the black hole of space. Oops, well, how did I get in here? What do you mean, homosexual acts? Did you see that guy, that preacher? The 11th commandment was, thou shalt snitch on thy fellow preacher. And so he went on Larry King, and he looked sort of like a combination of Billy Graham and Max Headroom. And he just said, he was with homosexuals, and suddenly PTL became past the lard. Just changed the whole concept. So, and it tarred all the other TV evangelists. Even Pat Robertson, was losing money, and he's running for Republican president. And this is a man who has said that the Lord has given him exclusive rights to broadcast the Second Coming on CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network. I think I would opt for senility. And he means it. Now, the thing is that the Fox Broadcasting Network has been able to outbid ABC, NBC, and CBS for the exclusive rights to telecast the Emmy Awards. So they have this newfound clout now, so they could outbid Pat Robertson easily. That's what the original plan was, to have the Second Coming take place on Joan Rivers' show. Then they fired her, but it would have been a great, let's hear it for the Savior, come on! comes out, probably wearing the same gowns, and, sits down there. Well, Jesus, can we talk? Were you really a virgin till you were 33? Oh, grow up. Didn't you fool around with Mary Magdalene just a little? But it didn't work out because there was no definite time that the second coming was scheduled. And so she was worried about residuals, so it just didn't work out. And they figured they would have it to perpetuity in the contract so that Jesus would serve at the second coming as his own host, because he's had a lot of experience as a host anyway. Thank you. I respect that you're not humoring me. But he probably would have Jessica Hahn as a guest, the 21-year-old secretary, and they would trade tricks. Jesus would show how to turn water into wine, and Jessica Hahn would show how to turn ordinary blackmail into an out-of-court settlement. She's doing an article for the November issue of Playboy on whether she was the aggressor or whether Jim Baker and the 4 guys who were with him were the aggressors. The suspense is just murder. Anyway, but it's easy to attack these guys because they're such public figures, literally public. You can see them doing their laundry in public. Whereas the real politics begins at home, in the family. If you have kids, do you treat them like possessions because you happen to pay their rent and their food bills? I'm in the middle of a triple generational syndrome. At the same time that I'm the father of my daughter, I'm the offspring of my parents. And so I can see the difference. There's been an evolutionary jump in child raising. My daughter could say to me, Daddy, that's trivial bullshit. I could never say that to my parents, even though they specialize in trivial bullshit. In fact, what I learned to handle that is, if I would visit them, I would pretend that I was visiting a Buddhist monk and nun. Their purpose on earth was to test my patience in trivia. So if you see it through that filter, then there's no resistance, You just the goal is to make everybody feel good. So if they say, hey, look how many electric outlets we have in the kitchen now, you just surrender to it. Oh, there's one. There's another one. Look, there's a 3-pronged. Oh. So I feel good, they feel good, we're communicating. And so it just opens up new vistas. If I'm eating a sandwich, my mother opens it from here, puts more food in here, and it's another world to contemplate. Is that genetic? Or did she learn it in home economics? I don't know. My father showed me how to put on the hood of a parka he gave me. He said, okay, now it's attached right here. If there's a sudden gust of wind, it's going to go like that. Now, I had a choice. If you're being tested, it's a choice every moment. I had a choice of saying, look, Dad, I'm not 5 years old. There's no reason for you to still be frozen in your role. But I instead made the choice to say to him as I did, let me practice a few times, Dad. He beamed with pride. And what that did was it opened up another level of intimacy. So he could now say to me, if there's a sudden warm spell, you just reverse the process, son. I said, okay, I got it like that. He didn't think we are a fast learner, my boy. So there was a whole different world. My father would take me fishing for recreation. I took my daughter Holly to Ecuador on a shamans and healers expedition. Where we lived with primitive Indians and took a strange drug called ayahuasca that they use in their healing ceremonies. These were the Cayapas Indians, and they truly were primitive. They had never seen civilized people. It was as if we had dropped in on them from Mars. And they would watch us. They became the anthropologists. We would take notes. The Cayapas are watching us. Take notes on them now. What else we gotta write? And we had to communicate only, by motions, because there was total language gap, and you couldn't explain. How could they ever understand the buildings we have here that have no 13th floor? They're savages. If they could speak, they would want to know, well, do the people who live on the 14th floor think they're getting away with something? But they're primitive. They don't understand sophisticated concepts. So, anyway, I had Holly read the literature on ayahuasca, because because you want to be a responsible father. So, you know, and she's reading this, because she was the only adolescent there, and this article by Dr. Andrew Weil. Although I really like vomiting, the effects of ayahuasca made me realize that the visions were not worth the vomiting. So she'd read that, reads and reconsiders, but it was, you know, she was the only kid, so it was like an adolescent rite of passage with 15 adults. So we're there, and the Cayapas Indians, they boil down these special vines and get this white bitter liquid that is in a clay pot which they pass around the shack. And so we each partake of it, and Alec takes hers and passes around. About 15 minutes later, we get real queasy. We go into the jungle, and she goes first, and she's standing her little body going, "Ugh!" And I was going, gee, I hope I've done the right thing. You have to always, you know, ask yourself that. The devil never sleeps. And then when she finishes, I start, and go, and there's stuff coming out there from 1978. It's like twisting the whole peristaltic motion so that I find myself vomiting and farting at the same time. And Holly hears that, so she starts laughing, which makes me start laughing. So they are in the middle of the jungle with primitive Indians, and I'm vomiting and farting and laughing. I think this is known as quality time. Anyway, we're going to have an intermission now, so it's truly been quality time with you. Thank you.
You know that Nicaragua was almost gone. sir, we've got a real barn burner, don't we? Oh, not enough at halftime. Frank Broyles and I are going to be back with more halftime festivities in just a couple of minutes, so don't you dare go away. And if you do, don't you dare come back. In the meantime, let's take a closer look, if we may, at the home of the Hessians, the University of Northern California.
If a visitor was allowed to stand in the tower of the Ungerleider Campanile on the campus of the University of Northern California, you could get a picture of a campus in motion, keeping up with today while retaining what's best of yesterday and providing parking space for tomorrow. Students are an important part of the picture at the university. Because classroom space is at a premium, many learning experiences take place in the world outside.
I'll be asking you a series of questions about some products which you use every day.
Here, students in a business administration class are taking a unique kind of final exam. Going door to door in residential neighborhoods, they're taking a survey on consumer attitudes towards cosmetics, which may cause cancer.
Now, would this affect your choice of a product very much, somewhat, or not at all?
While the students learn an important lesson in relating business to consumer wants and needs, the cosmetics industry receives valuable information at a highly reasonable cost.
Not at all?
A plus for anyone who wants to look his best.
Okay.
Enriching the students' educational experience at the university is only one of the reasons why research activities play a major role on the campus. Here, in the Alfred Sunkist Agritorium, Dr. Richard Swedlund is perfecting square grapefruits that are truly like to be mechanically picked.
My hopes and expectation is that 50 years from today, the round grapefruit will be the oddity. All things considered, the taste of the square grapefruit is actually quite acceptable. This is wood, and the real grapefruit is fruit. This model spins, and I worked on this personally. I like to work with my hands. Can you tell?
Across campus, in the newly built Helms Hall, Professor Richard Blum studies the buying habits of the peoples of the Third World. He often receives briefings from top government officials.
About 53% of the Vietnamese population would use the lip gloss. Small lip cancer. Now, as per our agreement, of course, this material is not to be shared with Professor Nelson.
The arts receive special consideration at the university. Here, the theater department performs selections from Fiddler on the Roof.
Agreed, I should be what I am. Would it spoil some vast eternal plan? If I were a wealthy man.
Community service also figures prominently in the university's planning. At a recent community meeting, Provost E. Donald Heckler agreed to share any new life forms created in the university's DNA labs with the city council. You were invited to take the unique university tour next time you're in the vicinity of the campus. You'll sit in a simulated classroom and sample wines and cheeses. Tickets are available at the university. The University of Northern California, where a tradition of excellence is always possible.
The proceeding was presented by insistence of the NCAA.
Good evening and welcome once again to our Authors Evening here at the Valley Jewish Community Center. It is wonderful to see our old friends and of course some new faces too. That's always a delight. Our guest this evening is the baseball writer for the Atlantic Monthly magazine. This is his first Los Angeles appearance since the publication of his new book. We're very honored as well as pleased to have him, and of course there will be cake afterwards, so please join us in welcoming Mr. Robert Bloom.
Thank you very much.
And I should just say one more thing. Mr. Bloom's appearance here this evening is made possible in part by a grant from the Light Beer Foundation.
Thank you, Naomi. It's great to be here at the Valley Center. I didn't realize they had such a big pool. It's great. You know, this whole thing about poet laureate of baseball came about quite by accident. I'm a little embarrassed about it sometimes. As Naomi told you, I'm on the staff of the Atlantic magazine, and some time ago I was able to prevail upon one of my editors to allow me to start writing about baseball games that I was going to at any rate. And the Atlantic being a monthly magazine with kind of a long deadline, it was inevitable, I guess, that any ball games I wrote about would kind of more or less be ancient history by the time the piece appeared in the magazine. So that appeared to put a premium on writing with a twist, which is not my strength, or on writing just with so much love and affection for the game that the reader would eventually forget that the ball game they were reading about had ended some 12, 13, 14 months earlier. The record, in my case, although I'm not into records, I'm not into statistics, I'm more into the heart of the game, but my record would be 5 years. I wrote a piece about a St. Louis Cardinals game with the Miracle Mets in 1969. And that piece ended up appearing in the Atlantic of August 1974, 5 years later. I'd like to read an excerpt from that piece here this evening. This would be some 13 years later still. So this would be an 18-year-old ball game we're talking about. The air was thick with humidity and expectation. The grass, for it was still real grass, though it was carefully trimmed, seemed to perk up its collective ear. As if it were aware of the preternatural significance of the events about to unfold upon it. At a concession stand, the man said to me, large, medium, or small. And though he was talking about cups of beer, he seemed to be summing up what the evening was to be all about. These young men, some of them too young to vote in many states, would, in the next 2.5 hours, determine whether the task before them was to be large, medium, or small. The organist played the Star Spangled Banner slowly, thoughtfully, as if for the first time. The flag waved upon its pole of prominence, as if it too were weary of the ritual, eager to get on with the business at hand, as if it too would remember, if indeed new pieces of cloth can be thought to have memory, would remember the evening's events as either large, medium, or small. It's about another 2,500 words before the game actually gets underway. I'm kind of proud of that piece. Most people think that that's from my first book, The Games of Summer. Actually, it's from the second book in the series, More Games of Summer. There's a lot of stylistic overlap between the two books, which accounts for the confusion. Now, the new book, and you can tell I'm a bit excited about it because it really represents kind of a departure for me. I began to feel, quite honestly, that one can write lovingly and evocatively and poetically about old baseball baseball games only for a certain number of decades before one begins to get stale. So I determined to tackle some new material, and that's what I'm doing in the new book. It is called Not Since Noah. And it is a book of memoirs, reminiscences about some of the most memorable rainouts it has been my career. I began thinking about the idea of the rainout. The fact that a large, diverse group of people gathers in a defined space for a finite but indeterminate amount of time, as if by prearrangement, to watch nothing at all. As a social ritual, as a non-athletic event, it began to fascinate me. I'd like to read an excerpt from Not Since Noah. This is from a Baltimore Oriole rainout from 1982, the strike year. The tarp was now less a surface than a coalition of little pools. Lakelets of once and future rainwater that in the soft percussion of their arrival seemed to play a tattoo of melancholy. Not just for the evening, but for the season, for the idea of the season. The wind, in its shifting currents, wove a tapestry of itself. Through the organist's jaunty version, was it too jaunty a version? But raindrops keep falling on it. The music from the PA speakers came and went, rose and fell, ebbed and flowed. A Doppler effect of the ear. The 6-year-old next to me dropped his hot dog. Smearing French's best on my left hand leg. It is very important. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a very important ball game. They tried for about 4.5 hours to play the game and get it started. The entire piece runs some 30,000 words. I am getting the signal from Naomi. Surprisingly, I guess I read too slowly. I don't have time for the question and answer session, unfortunately, but I'm told the marble cake is fresh today, so that is good news. And I'm also asked to remind you that the author's evening here at the Valley Jewish Community Center continues next week with the young man who's been writing the titles for the Robert Ludlum books. Mr. Gregory Miller will be here to read from and discuss his exciting new first novel, The Mirsky Conundrum. So
Here's Laurie Anderson for Forever and a Day.
There was this man. And one time, he said to this woman, "Excuse me, are you using a maxi pad?" And the woman said, "Hi, Mom." "No, seriously," the woman said, "I'm using Forever and a Day." And the man said, "Huh?" And the woman said, "Forever and a Day. It's a mega pad. It's a mega pad." And the man said, "Oh, hi, Mom."
Mary Lou, and this is ABC Fun Fit. That means getting fit and having fun at the same time. Sound impossible? No, it's not. Show you how. Yeah, we're going to take you on a trip. Center of your body, that's your down to your foundation, that's your legs, and right out to your extremity. Hands, head, feet. We're going to teach you to reach, roll, make muscles like stretchers. We're going to pounce, prowl, rock to the rhythm, and you're even going to invent. Yes, you are. Your body is your responsibility. No one else can find a winner besides you.
The presidential campaign of 1988 is already well underway. Between now and Election Day, there will be many great debates. But speaking is only half of effective communication and leadership. Listening is the other half. So tonight, some of the major contenders for 1988 join together in a campaign first. The Great Silence. The Great Silence was presented as a public service by the League of Voters Who Dress Like Women.
You want a level, Jerry? All right. Testing 1, 2, 3. My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to announce that I've signed legislation today that will send all the Jews to live on farms. Let me do this. All right, is that okay? All right. Radio speech, take 1. Here we go. My fellow Americans, this is the time of the year when the hot dogs are as big and as plump as the Democrats' deficit. And melons are sweeter than a started smile. So maybe this is a good time for us to talk a little bit about some important matters. Well, maybe I'll do the talking, but you and your family can listen. First, although I'm reserving my real comments until after the hearings are over, let me say this about the so-called Iran-Contra affair. What I've learned during the past few months hasn't been pleasant. Learning never is. And there comes a time during every administration when the president has to, in the words of astronaut Alan Shepard in the movie of The Right Stuff, push the edge of the envelope. I'm going one step further. I'm asking you to support me as we get started on a whole new envelope. After all, you and I know darn well that no matter where the buck stops, it at least passes through here. If Colonel North or others have violated the law, they'll have their day in court. In any case, they will always bear the burden of having had newsmen camp out on their lawn for 6 months. But when you get right down to it, it's this simple. I never told anyone to withhold information from me. And if I did, they should have told me they were doing it. That way I could have at least known what I wasn't being told. But without prejudging any proceedings yet to come, let me also say this. If this country had a few more Ollie Norths, a lot fewer Arthur Lymans, there wouldn't be nearly as many seeds in our rye bread. Now, of course, we have no intention of letting the Democrats use this tempest to tip over our teapot of aid to the Nicaraguan freedom fighters, what I call the Second American Founding Fathers. But now a few words about a more pleasant subject, your money. A couple of months ago, I went back on the warpath for my economic reform program, what I call the Second American Bill of Rights. Since then, the predictable army of lobbyists have begun their march up Capitol Hill, accompanied by their predictable navy of attractive young women. What's got them so upset is that my proposals would hit a home run for fairness. Fairness for the millions of hard-working Americans who want nothing more than what Frank Sinatra once described as just the chance to slip $20 to the fella at the front door. But that shining door of opportunity could be slammed shut unless the Democrats get their sticky fingers off the knob. You see, the other party seems to be making its living these days by dividing Americans. Rich against poor, young against old, white against a certain element. We won't divide America up against herself, despite the efforts of the special interest types who call their spaghetti pasta and put something green on top of it. So would you tell the congressman or woman that you agree with me that our economic reforms, like the Second American Gold Rush, are long overdue? You know, a couple of weeks ago, I got a letter from an 11-year-old child actor. It was on another subject, but the spirit and initiative this young fella showed in writing to his president, asking me to pray for his younger brother, who was up for a Tony Award. Well, that's the kind of thing that could unleash a shining force for progress. Something called good old American scissoring. You know, with your help, a year from now, all of us, including the Nicaraguans, could be basking in the shining glow of the ultraviolet lamp of opportunity. And we could all be celebrating what you might call the Second American Bicentennial. You know, in a way, it's like the old show business veteran said, you ain't seen nothing yet, and you will. Mommy, where's the ointment? My keister's on fire.
This rivals any awards ceremony I've ever seen, believe me. But the professionalism of all the ITVA members, when they get together and do it, it's multiplied, and something magic happens, and you're all experiencing it here as well as out there on the network. And as it said on the brochure for the conference you may have just received, ITVA, y'all are simply the best. And now I get to do my share by presenting an award. A silver reel of excellence in public service, public relations to the R.J. Reynolds Company of Winston-Salem.
The plant's 46 acres of finished space contain a 25-acre processing area with custom-designed, computer-controlled machinery that can blend more than 800,000 pounds of tobacco a day, and 17 acres of state-of-the-art equipment that can make and pack 110 billion cigarettes a year. Putting it all in motion is the most technologically advanced industrial power plant in the nation, with two 40-megawatt turbines using 800 tons of coal a day.
A silver reel of excellence to Tobaccoville, the world's largest cigarette factory, accepting J.D. Shepard.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Seth Moskowitz for a great script, Austin Film and Tape for shooting a great show, and I'd like to thank my wife for putting up with me while I did this. Thank you.
Bang your head against the stage like you never have before. Make it ring, make it bleed, make it really sore. In a frenzied madness, now is the time to let it rip, to let it fucking loose. We are gathered here to maim and kill, for this is what we choose. Ozzy Osbourne, on his first solo album shown here, sings a song called Suicide Solution. Ozzy insists that he in no way encourages suicidal behavior in young people, and yet he appears in photographs such as these. In photographs such as these, in periodicals that are geared toward the young teenage audience. For those of you who can't make that out because of the lights, it's a picture of Ozzy with a gun barrel stuck into his mouth. This is the cover of Twisted Sister's high-selling LP for Atlantic Records called Stay Hungry. An example of Twisted Sister's appeal to young people is evident in the back-to-school contest being run by MTV. First prize is a get-together with Twisted Sister. Is that, do me a favor, I think we want an automatic there. If you'll, that little knob at the bottom, if you'll run that back, toward the back. No, I'm sorry, back, toward the back of the projector. There's a turn on knob and the knob below that. Run that back. Okay? No, the one below that. Run that back to the back. There you go. I think we got it on automatic. My apologies. From their album, On Your Knees, sing these words. Knocking down your door, gonna pull you to the floor. Taking what I choose, never gonna lose. Gonna drive my love inside you, gonna nail your ass to the floor. How bad can it get? The list is endless. This album was released just recently by a band called The Mentors. It was released on the album and the label Enigma Records, which also launched Motley Crue's career. The album includes songs like 4F Club, Finder, Feeler, Fucker, and Forgetter, Free Sex Toy, Crack Queen, My Erection is Over, and the song Golden Showers, which says these words, listen, you little slut, do as you are told. Come with daddy for me to pour the gold. Golden showers, all through my excrements you shall roam. Bend up and smell my anal vapor. Your face is my toilet paper. On your face I leave a shit tower. Golden showers.
Inspired.
That's better. Just because you're a museum don't mean you have to have bleeding proper. See, we can't even get airplay on that thing, you know, that's the sad part. I mean, our songs are as disgusting as that. We got tunes as disgusting as that. It's just lack of promotion, you know, it just goes back to that, it's lack of promotion. I bring sad tidings today. The band is broken up again. Maybe it's a bit of my fault. I wanted to go in the direction of Christian rock. Just because it's hot, you know, it really is hot now. They're selling lots of records, and it's really not that much of a change for us, you know. It's the same 3 chords. 2 on a good night, you know. And we're all singing about hell, you know. It's just they take a different position on it than we do. I mean, it's not a big deal. Which is not to say, by the way, that I and my mates are Satanists per se, because I've always felt that a man's relationship, you know, with the supreme evil one is a very private affair. And so I'm in Los Angeles, you know, doing some tracks, laying down some tracks in the studio, as a matter of fact, for some mates of mine in a Christian rock band. Lamb's Blood, anybody heard? Their bass player backslid, and he took his bass with him, so I'm filling in. And while I'm in the movie capital, it occurred to me that I might straighten out a couple of things. You know, a lot of people thought that the first time a Derek Smalls, if you please, appeared before the motion picture cameras, it was in that movie about the band, Spinal Tap. It's not true. Were those lighters already? Wait, you'll get your chance. I was, the first time the band broke up, which was, anybody? 76. I was asked to be in a movie by the Italian director, Marco Zamboni. See, this is the bleeding crime right here. This is it right here. I mean, you lot call yourself the movie capital. This man was responsible single-handedly for the greatest Italian shoe videos ever shot. Nothing here, nothing. Anyway, he did a feature-length film. It was called, he made it in 1976. It was called Roma 79. He got it spot on. He guessed exactly what Rome was going to be like 3 years later. The food, the gangsters, everything. He asked me to play the role of a mafia hitman, a hired killer. And I was more than happy to, because I wasn't doing anything else. So we'd like to show you here this afternoon a bit from Marco Zamboni's Roma 79. Would you roll it, please? You'll see what no, see, it's on video now, but he originally shot it on film. Hello, it's me. Now, watch this bit here. This, right there. Yeah? 5 hours to get that cheap thing on, you know. Now, this is what kind of a genius Marco Zamboni is. He says to me, Derek, on stage, you wear black, you wear a bit of red. For me, you will wear white. That's the way he thinks, see? Now, this is I'm a hired killer. This is my gun. It's a very special gun, as you can see. Because it doesn't exist. Marco Zamboni made up this bleeding gun. You see what I'm saying? I mean, they talk about the genius of George Lucas and that lot. We know those planets exist. He dreamed up this bleeding gun. Right, now here's my target. And Derek's getting him in his sides, and... Wait a minute. Uh-oh, who's dead? It's me. See, because there's a geezer dressed just like me in the doorway. He shoots me. And then the opening credits run, and the movie's about the bloke in the doorway. Marco's Zamboni drummer, 79, with Derek Small. You know, I just wanted any producers or agents in the audience to know that, yes, I can wear white. Now, it is a widespread misconception. Or it would be if more people believed it. That the bass is not a melodic instrument. I'm going to dash this theory to bits right here before your eyes and ears this afternoon with a medley of my own devising. I did not write either of these tunes. I don't write any tunes, so I thought it was only fair not to write these too. But I did make up this medley, and I gave it its title. I call it Stairway to Pennies from Heaven. Tune just a bit, don't you think? This was one of the crowd's favourite parts of the old Spinal Tap shows. Oh, there it is. They would yell, "More tuning for hours." And we wouldn't do it for them, you know. We tormented them. I know it's a museum, but any smoke. Thank you, music lovers!
Newswatch. It could be big, so be prepared. I'm Paul Strossels in Washington for the WeView News Center. It could be big, so be prepared. From Washington, this is Paul Strossels for WICS 20 News. It could be big, so be prepared. From Washington, this is Paul Strossels for TV9 Eyewitness News. It could be big, so be prepared. From Washington, this is Paul Strossels for 12 Eyewitness News. It could be big,
Together
so
we
be
cover the
prepared.
world with the
Reporting from
Tri-Cities
Washington,
in
this is
mind.
Paul Strossels for News Center 22.
Together, we cover the world with the Tri-Cities in mind.
It could be big, so be prepared.
Together,
in
we cover
Washington,
the
for
world
News
with
Center
New
7,
Mexico
this
in
is Paul
mind.
Strossels.
Together, we cover the world with New Mexico in mind.
It could be big, so be prepared. From Washington, this is Paul Strossels for
Together,
Kellerland
we cover
News.
the world with Louisiana in mind. Together, we cover the
It could
world
be big,
with
so be
Louisiana in
prepared.
mind.
From Washington, Paul Strossels, Channel 13, Eyewitness News.
Together, we cover the world with the Panhandle in mind.
It could be big,
Cover
so
the
be
world with the
prepared.
Panhandle
Reporting
in
from
mind.
Washington, this is Paul Strossels for the East Texas News.
Together.
He was going to say together. Well, it is big. We are prepared. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Amundsen Auditorium. This is not to be confused with the Amundsen Theater. That's the one with the less expensive free parking. We're in the midst of the new downtown. I don't know if you've noticed it. I don't know if you've had a chance to walk around and just breathe it in. Oddly enough, and I know this is hard to believe, up till about 25 years ago, this was just another one of those neighborhoods in Los Angeles filled with old Victorian houses. Today, of course, it is a place I love to think of as the land of 1,000 plazas. They all have weird insurance company names like Minibar Plaza, things like that that just don't make any sense at all. They all, before they turn a spade full of earth to build these buildings and these plazas, what they do first is they get logos for them. All these buildings down here have logos. Odd little art director kind of three-line stylized depictions. And I couldn't figure out what was odd about that until I realized real places are their own logos. They don't have like a little art-directed logo on the Chrysler Building in the Sistine Chapel to make you go, oh yeah, that's what that looks like. Anyway, Saturday matinee, which is in the theater, normally means one thing, but here, it's a museum. There's always very critical, judgmental people around, so I thought I'd invite some judgmental people of my own to hook in with us on the satellite link this afternoon. You don't have to feel intimidated. It just helps me to know that they're, looking in. Gene, of course, Gene Siskel over there will basically be watching for any critics in the audience. He'll be reporting back to Roger if he sees anything he doesn't like. Oh, good afternoon, Mayor. No homeless here, don't worry about it. Anyway, this is Los Angeles. It's an exciting time to be here. This is the city that put the right to bear arms on wheels. It just goes to show that this society has come to a point where we depend, I don't know if you saw the latest stories about this whole phenomenon of freeway shootings, but it was a story in yesterday's LA Times that said people are starting to drive more courteously and not cut in and go, no, please, out of sheer paranoia. So it just shows that this society has progressed to the point where our law enforcement is handled by the nuts. Paul, I know, did chapter and verse for you on the hearings. I just want to add a couple of notes since they're coming to an end, and I'm going through hearing withdrawal right now. I sort of like having that parade of characters come through my living room. I enjoy it. They're a wonder. It's rare, you just get a whole upper layer of the government ripped out, and you can just see it one person at a time coming through there and saying, no, I'm not lying, the other guy's lying. the only unused opportunity or unavailable opportunity. There have been plenty of unused opportunities, but I don't know. It sort of made me swell up with pride yesterday when Senator Paul Sarbanes finally said the magic words. Wasn't this like a military junta? Wasn't this a coup? But the one opportunity the committee did not have was to actually question the president, of course. Although knowing this committee, they probably would have sent Orrin Hatch to do the job.
Mr. President, isn't it true you did what he did out of belief in the freedom of the people of the world?
Well, I guess I did.
Sure it was. We all believe it.
Thank you, I'll tell him you said that. But there are other things besides the hearings that are in the news that interest me. I read the business section of the New York Times religiously, possibly because the religion of America is business. And there was a story a couple months ago that attracted my attention. Everybody here who is like me and doesn't read books is probably aware that for the last 10 years, we've sort of been awash in a warm bath of patriotic advertising, and it's felt so good. It started with the bicentennial, I guess, and businesses just realized that they could make a lot of money by doing what hippies got arrested for doing 10 years earlier, wrapping themselves in the American flag. And so we had, Kodak is looking for America, and a lot of people saying things like, American? We've got your beer. And it was a feel-good time kind of thing, type deal, I guess. It sort of climaxed in '84 with the Reagan campaign. Of course, it's Morning in America. We all remember that. Now, of course, it's the morning after. So the Times piece said, Madison Avenue's discovered these things no longer work. They no longer pluck the strings in the right way. They no longer motivate people. Whether it's because of the hearings or the Jim and Tammy thing, or just, God forbid, a new wave of disbelief sweeping the country. How did that happen? They are going a different way now. The Isuzu liar guy and things like this, trying to appeal to what they discern as a new sophistication and cynicism in the marketplace. But doggone it, I'm going to miss that patriotism stuff. It was, it just made me feel good all over. It's the kind of claptrap I love, and so I didn't want this era to come to an end without some notice being taken of it, and I take my notice in the only language those people understand, their own.
We were searching for America. We found it wherever we went. We were banking on America. It was money well spent. But the USA just isn't what it used to be. Scandals, bribes, teenage suicides from sea to shining sea. So we're sitting you down, America. We're going another way. We're riding you out, America. Patriotism has lost its pay. You were good for us, we were good for you. But every dog has his day. We're laying you off, America. We got bored with the USA. Bored with the USA. Everybody. Bored with the USA. Come on, Mr. Mayor, you know this one. Bored with the USA. Thank you very much. Remember, diamonds are apartheid's best friend. Good afternoon.